G'day everyone, if you're new here, welcome to the channel. I'm Bite Nibble Chomp, otherwise known as Ryan O'Shea, the developer of Strategic Command American Civil War and the Wars in the Americas DLC. Today we are beginning a new multiplayer series. I will be playing against Game of the Colonel, and we're going to be playing the 1866 Paraguay Under Siege campaign, which is the middle phase of the Paraguayan War. The Colonel has asked to play as Paraguay, which means that we will be playing as the Triple Alliance, the historical victors in this conflict. But, as you will soon see, the terrain in Paraguay is ghastly. So this will be a very tough advance. Paraguay has the first move, and as yet I have not actually developed a plan of campaign. I'd like to see how he wants to handle this first, and then make our move from there. So this will be our first turn, June 3rd, 1866. Of course, the campaign begins with the Battle of Tuyuti, the biggest battle in South American history. Paraguay launched a big attack trying to capture the Allied artillery. Didn't really succeed. Took a lot of losses in the progress. General Winfield Scott dies. That's a... how should we put this? A very interesting way to start the campaign. I think it's pretty accurate of how it's going to go too. Got lots of rain, got lots of swamps. This is what we will be advancing into. So, what a lot of people I think don't really realise about this map is from the top of the map to where the river is, that's only about 20 kilometres. And historically, it took the better part of 2 years to advance from where we start in Itapiro up and capture this, Humayita, it's a gigantic Paraguayan fortress. Pretty much commands the only way into Paraguay. There was another route much further to the east that was used by General Belgrano's army in 1811. That's the only other alternative way into Paraguay at this time in history. So, the Paraguayans have got lots and lots of fortifications just about everywhere. He's undoubtedly going to be building more. We've got to work out how we're going to get through them. He'll only have about half the production that we have, but we've got to get through every one of these swamps, every fortification, whatever other armies he puts in our way, and capture this before the end of the campaign. There's supposed to be a pop-up box to tell us what to do, but I don't know why that didn't appear. But the long and short of it is, our infantry have a minimum supply of 3 at all times, so if I wanted to, I can march straight into this swamp and we'll have at least some supply. That doesn't extend to the HQs, the cavalry or the artillery, it's only the infantry units, but it does give us a bit of freedom of movement. The Paraguayan units, they have 2 spotting range as well as the ability to build fortifications, and they build them fairly quickly, so pretty much anywhere that his armies are, they're going to be fortified. We're going to have to smash our way through it. So it looks like that the Colonel has not actually launched much of a offensive against us. So let's just work out. No, I'll get rid of the units. Come on. Where's the get rid of units button? There it is. Alright. So, point to note, in all the strategic command games, swamps reduce the go away units. The swamps will reduce the attacking value of any unit attacking out of them by 50%. In this campaign, because swamps are every second hex just about, the allied infantry, that's reduced to 25%, but it's still a very significant penalty. There's also a penalty for attacking off these river hexes, which is most of the rest of the hexes. And then these smaller rivers, that's 25%. So if we're able to, we want to be attacking primarily through the clear hexes. Where he's got fortifications, we want to be what's the word? We want to attack through the clear hexes, bombard his entrenchment down to 0, smash our way through, rinse, repeat, all the way up here. So there's a few ways we can go about this campaign. One way, the way that was ultimately the most significant historically, is to go up the Paraguay River. Historically, they did a landing, took Carusu in September of 1866. They also landed a force in the Chaco over here, capturing, well, not really capturing. Garibaldi was a Brazilian army camp that was built during the war. So is Porto Eliciario, which is really just a small jetty on the bank of the river there. But they landed here, built a road, established a base up here. Then this port will block the route into everything further upriver. We're not going to be able to capture this port until we knock out this fortress. To knock out this fortress, you got to get through these two. Getting through those two, pretty difficult. Historically, the Allies launched an attack October 1866. It was a complete disaster for them. I have learned from history, I'm not going to be repeating that. But you can also bombard these ports. We've only got 3 ironclads at the moment. That is enough to bust the port down. If you knock it down to 0, you can sail past it. But we're not going to be able to sustain it at 0 for very long. So I'm thinking if I attempt that, I'll probably do it after we've got some reinforcements. We've got a couple of boats going to come through in 1867-68. Then from there, you do naval landing to capture this. That opens up that route. You have to knock out Timbo Fortress. And then if you capture Pilar, that reduces Paraguay's income to 0. As soon as that happens, you pretty much won the campaign regardless. The next route that we can advance, this doesn't actually go anywhere, it's just swamps and... Calling this a lagoon is a bit generous. It's really a floodplain that's just sort of submerged enough that you can sail boats into it. But this land, I'm not even sure how much it actually looks like this today, because it's sort of... It rains a lot in this area. When it does, all the lakes and that just appear, and then they dry out, and so the terrain's quite unpredictable. That's why it's just lakes everywhere. It's very low-lying, pretty much a swamp, and then forested over in a lot of places as well. So the next route is through up here to Uti. This is very heavily fortified. We've got this inlet thing you've got to cross. Capture that. Then you've got more swamps. Then you've got the main Paraguayan army base at Pazapuku. And then you advance overland and attack Humaita from the south. That historically was the initial plan of the Allies. But they only really got up to about here, and then they sort of gave up on it because it's just... the terrain's awful there. They never actually captured Pazapuku until quite late in the war. The next route, and the one that was probably most interesting historically, was when the Duke of Caxias took command of the armies in late 1866. First he refitted everyone, and then mid-1867 he launched a march through all the swamps over here. The Paraguayans didn't actually know that he was doing it until he completed his march. Game doesn't allow you to just sneak units completely undetected. But so it marched through here, captured this, tried to go through this way, but this position at the angle is very strong. They weren't actually able to get through there for quite a while, so he focused most of his efforts on advancing up here. Eventually cut the Paraguayan lines at Establecimiento, and then attacked Humaita from the east. And at the same time as that, launched another overland campaign and took Pilar. And Tayi as well. That was a combined naval and land campaign. If we're able to cut off the Humaita from Pilar, which basically means capturing somewhere around calling it the Hondo River is very generous. It's not very long at all. It goes out to here. That's probably about 6 kilometers. So I'm not sure who named it a river, but yeah, they're not completely honest about what it really is. So, the other thing we've got to worry about is Argentina in November of 1866. Argentina exploded into civil war. The some of the western provinces, they weren't especially heavily settled, but Argentina had sort of had this big fight between the government in Buenos Aires and most of the rest of the country for most of its existence, last 50 years at this point. And anyway, the Buenos Aires faction ended up winning a civil war in 1861, but that didn't really please everyone else who had been involved. So they sort of they launched what was called the Rebellion of the Colorados, which involved a bunch of revolutionaries coming through Chile as well, and pretty much forced Argentina to withdraw majority of their army. Didn't really play a significant role in the rest of war, or indeed in the occupation. Even until the 1890s, Argentina didn't have a lot of influence in Paraguay, whereas before the war they'd pretty much been the sole arbiter of Paraguay's fate, although Paraguay was very closed off to the world under the Francia regime of the 1810s, 20s and 30s. So, the Colonel has not attacked. It is possible to actually knock out this gun on turn 1 if you play your cards right. So what I'd like to do, number 1, I want to know what he's got out here, because I want to do an Eastern campaign. You're out there. Why are you out there? Do you have a friend in Niambuku? You do. Well, this whole area is called the Plain of Niambuku, and then this is just a little camp that the Allies built. Most of the towns on this map, they're not really towns, they're just places that happen to be used as supply dumps. Only the ones that are called fortified towns, or the regular towns, or these two, I think are actual settlements. Most of the rest are just places where battles were fought or supplies were stored at some point during the war, because I mean, each hex is only about 300 or 400 meters across. Not very large. Okay, so what I'd like to do is concentrate most of the Argentines in the west. They're going to get smacked by the withdrawal event on turn 9 or 10. So I still want to get as much use out of them as I can before the withdrawal happens. And then what I'll probably do is just retreat behind Estero Belico, and if he wants to come out, he's welcome to, because Paraguay's units suck on the attack unless they can catch the Allies in an unfavourable position. The other thing I'm going to do, I'm going to sack this Muppet straight away. We don't need Muppets commanding the army, we need skilled leaders. I'd like to knock you off, since you're in clear terrain, I can do that. 3-3. We're never going to have nice combat odds. This campaign is the bloodiest war in South American history, and well, this campaign will reflect that. It's a nasty, nasty place. And we are off to a terrible start. That is encouraging. That's a bit better. Alright. And already we're facing traffic jams. I am very pleased with that. Not at all. Shall we bring the Uruguayans? I think the Uruguayans will be very useful out here. Actually, I don't want the Argentines going over there, I want the Brazilians over there. Already, we're a bit disorganised. I knew I had a second HQ, I forgot that he was still on the Argentine bank of the river. Muppet, die. There we go. Well, that's first blood. Another thing worth pointing out is Paso de Patria. If we lose that, we lose the campaign immediately. I don't think the Colonel's going to come after it too hard. I've been watching his game against OCP in the 1870 campaign. He hasn't played especially aggressively in that one. And Germany against France is much more favoured for the aggressive side than Paraguay against the Triple Alliance is. So I expect he will be playing a very cautious game. Could be wrong. Of course, you never know what your opponent is going to do, but might as well use the information that I've got on hand. I would prefer if you weren't there, but I don't think I have that as an option. Burrito, out you come. I do need to leave some Brazilians in this part of the map. Otherwise he can either just evacuate it, or when the Argentines withdraw, ram his way through and capture my camp at Paso de Patria. And yes, I'm going to be using force marches a lot. I know they are a bit contentious. In this campaign, well, you're not going to have supply anyway, so what's it matter? Let's put you there. That's a nice central location. We've got these units. They are going to advance up. Sorry, I want to have 2 HQs and 2 artillery on my eastern attack. Maybe in 3 HQs. So I get Caxius in October as well. Until October I can hold this region. I've never actually tested the Eastern offensive strategy before, or at least not as hard as I'm going to be going at this campaign. Should be interesting. It did work historically, but historically Lopez lost half his army in the Battle of Tuyuti. The Colonel's not quite so foolish. Yeah, I know that Francisco Lopez is regarded as a bit of a national hero in Paraguay today. For the life of me, I can't understand why. He's probably the worst leader that any country has ever had. About 60% of Paraguay's population was killed during this war. So, yes, that's an encouraging sign for a national hero, isn't it? I suppose Paraguay hasn't had a lot of success in its history in anything, unfortunately. Cause they were really isolated until the Paraguayan War, and then they got, well, you'll see what happens to them. Pretty terrible result for a country. And then after that, the 1870s, 1880s, 1890s, they're having like constant coups, and the economic situation was a complete catastrophe. And then you had the Chaco War, which, although Paraguay won, it was very expensive. So, yeah, their history, it's very, very exciting to read, but not so pleasant to live, I imagine. Now, we also know, or at least I know because I designed this thing, that there is a Paraguayan gunboat. And it might be hiding in here. If it is, I'm going to sink it. Or it might have escaped upriver, in which case we'll deal with it later. But I would like to know where it is. Straight up. Like, nah, it's gone. Very well. That means it is further up the river somewhere. I imagine the Colonel's trying to just avoid getting it sunk. It's pretty useless in battle, so evacuating it to Umaita or one of the other ports. Not a bad move. I will send him cross-capture this. This has no defenders on turn 1, so should be able to just rush up the river. If I send the rest of the army with it, so what I'd like to do is just outflank him straight up, because he's probably going to expect me to concentrate on the central approach. Every YouTube playthrough I've seen of this campaign, I've watched quite a few of them. For some reason, all of you like to concentrate exclusively on this middle front. I'm not sure why. The terrain is probably the worst out of everywhere on the map, so... Interesting choice. A lot of the players that have done that have won, so I guess you can't argue with results, but... Just interesting observation that I've had. I was going to move these two. I'm going to put you on a transport. I want you to come on. I'll drop you in either Cora next turn. Palnero. I think we need to just put him on a boat. I will send him to support this move. Argentina gets some reinforcements in a couple of turns. Once that's all set up, I'll set up my position along the Stero Bellico. Not going to buy any units this turn. I could, but we're going to need them for the points for replacements. Or I might buy an artillery. Yes, we can buy... Oh, we can buy a... No, we can't. We can buy a Brazilian artillery potentially next turn. I'll see what the situation looks like then. I wouldn't be surprised if he puts a defender in here. I kind of hope he doesn't. But, well, if you fight your war based on what you hope the enemy does, you're not likely to be terribly successful. Alright. That is turn 1. Little battle in the Chaco. That's the west bank of the Paraguay River, for those not familiar with the geography of the area. And that is our turn done. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time.